gentlemen, and welcome to the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world show made for the fans by a fan. I am your host, as always, Richard Team, and this is the award-winning Fan Show. Thank you to those of you joining me this evening. It is Wednesday, which means one thing here on the Fan Show, and that is that you get a double dose of the nonsense. And, it is no nonsense, however, that Battlebots is just freaking awesome, okay? Can we be real here for a second? Let's just set aside that it's not a real sport, or it's just, RC cars out there fight. Okay, it kicks ass. I love Battlebots, and each episode seems to get better and better. But the guest segments that I do here week in and week out also seem to get better and better. Now, I didn't pre-record the two tonight, but whoops. Did I spoil something? That's right. Not one, but two special guests this evening. Help me out here, Fozzie. On the Fan Show, Hal Rucker of Quack, 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 Duck. That's right, Duck's one and only visionary. The driver, the captain, the man behind Duck will be on the episode tonight. And Matthew Vasquez, the young gun, the man, the kid, the man, the protege, however you want to put it. It's a family affair with Team Whiplash, but he's the one that they put the control in his hands, and he has been doing awesome all of Season 3. So we're going to have a chance to sit down with the young man and get his thoughts on everything. So action-packed episode tonight, and I try to give you guys that each and every night here on the Fan Show, every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. But Wednesday, kind of a special one because it's something different, right? I have people that tune in specifically for the BattleBot segment that don't listen to any other episode, but they listen religiously to this one. And for those of you that's the case, no need to apologize, no hard feelings. I love it. Thank you. Continue to share and like the Fan Show. And there's a couple of things in the headlines today for the Fan Show. So how about we just skip the formalities and get right to it with today's headlines. And today's headlines, at least in the world of F.A.N, the Fan Show has reached 900 likes on Facebook. So thank you all out there in the world of Bookface. You guys are awesome. For so long, I was under the impression that if you wanted stuff to happen for you as far as on a social media platform, it had to be Twitter. Twitter was your bread and butter. And for me, for starting out, it really was. We got to 10,000 followers last year, had a celebration, made T-shirts to commemorate the occasion, the event, and those were an exclusive one of one. Those that have one, those will be the only ones ever. Now, the following has dropped below the 10K mark, and that's fine. Followers are going to come and go. Bot accounts are going to get created and deleted. I don't mind. I really don't. But I was so focused on Twitter and the following, and really it was because of the crowd of people I surrounded myself with. They thought that, if you weren't if you didn't have a big following, if you didn't have a certain ratio of following to followers, and if you didn't have that blue check mark, that made you, just not worthy of our time on social media. And that's just incorrect, because there's an individual I know that has the blue check mark, and that entire time that they've had it, they have accomplished and done really nothing for themselves or for the world of sports or whatever the hell they cover. But yet they were so kind as to call me out, or try to, might I add, saying that I was growing stale. And here we are. I'm about to wrap up my second tour of the Fan Show. It's been an incredible year. and I feel like it's only going to get better. Still a free agent. There are some conversations being had, but in regards to the Facebook and the likes, I feel like that is a more intimate community, one that I'm really happy is growing at the rate that it is. Because I remember thinking, this time last year that I wasn't going to worry about Facebook, that it wasn't going to be my focus, and that we were just going to do everything on Twitter. But there's been so much more of an outreach, so much more of a response and a reaction and a collective on Facebook. So 900 likes, very happy with that. I got to think now of what I'm going to do when I hit 1,000. Who knows when that'll be. I always get these kind of bum rushes of likes after a big event, which I'm fine with, but I do like to see the following and the fan base for the fan show continue to become more popular and grow more and more people telling their friends to tell their friends to tell their friends. And that's what this is all about. Awareness, and I'm trying to build a brand. I'm not trying to build an empire. I'm just trying to build a brand, something that I can be proud of, and that maybe if I ever have them, my kids can be proud of someday. It'd be nice if they were here to watch me build it, but I think telling them stories of all that went into this, and crazy trips to Iowa and Green Bay and Arizona, and Twitter feuds and arguments, and that will make for much better bedtime material than Once Upon a Time and three little bears. But it is what it is. 900 likes on Facebook. Thank you again so much, Fan Nation. You guys are great. And then the big news, and this has been coming for like 3 months now, when they first said that they were submitting podcasts to this platform. Spreaker, who's been very good to me. I broadcast from Spreaker every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday night at, it was one time, it's now another time, and that is subject to change, but every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And it goes to iTunes, SoundCloud, and iHeartRadio. iHeartRadio was a big one. I was very happy, very pleased to be part of that. Spreaker has a relationship there, and so now my podcast gets distributed to iHeartRadio. But now, today, 3 long months of waiting, the fan show has been successfully submitted and will be on Spotify in the next couple of weeks. So thank you, Fan Nation. It has been an incredible journey, and I'm very excited for what lies ahead. So I want to thank you all for that. As far as the rest of the headlines, of course, we pretty much covered the big thing that happened over the weekend, which was the United Bowl. Again, congratulations to the Iowa Barnstormers. July 7th, 7/7, is officially Iowa Barnstormers Day in the state of Iowa. That's huge. Joe Stacy, my guest last night, spoke on that a little bit. It was a great conversation. Great to have him on there and close out the IFL portion of the fan show. Of course, there will be news that comes in snippets as we move forward, but for right now, all's quiet in the world of indoor football for the IFL anyway. We do still have a season to conclude in the National Arena League, which, in case you missed it, there were a couple of games that happened. I did not get to see these games because I was, of course, on location, on assignment, as I call it. But these ones, it was pretty good. The Sharks fell short in Columbus, 48-43. Columbus remains unbeaten at home. Now, that could prove to be huge coming up later on this season, because right now we have, as it stands, the standings currently are Columbus in first place with a record of 8-3. Now, they have played one less game than a majority of the other teams. Second place is Massachusetts. The Pirates are 9-4. So one more win and one more loss than Columbus. So Columbus is actually 2 games behind Massachusetts. And then we have here Carolina, third at 7-4. And then Jacksonville at 8-5. That loss to Columbus could be huge for both of those teams. Seems to be like Carolina and Massachusetts are both duking it out for second and third place second and third seed going into the playoffs. Now, I'm not sure entirely how the postseason works for the National Arena League because this is my first year covering it, but I would assume with 6 teams, it's a similar format to that of the IFL, which is that you don't have 2 conferences. You will have a left side and a right side when it comes to the championship, so there will be some type of champion representing whatever they come up with for that, I assume. And then, of course, we have the 4-team playoff, which I believe last time I checked was what was going to be the case anyway. But that could change. It could change in regards to I'm not entirely 100% on how that works. I don't mean that they're going to make it up as they go. So don't mean to mislead you there. But as for today, it is Slurpee Day, so happy Slurpee Day. We will have a preview of the NAL games coming up tomorrow. Tomorrow we have a special surprise guest. Might be the last time we talk IFL for a while, but as I mentioned last night on the show, it is something that we wanted to do the speculation game, and this guest is like, yeah, let's do the speculation game. So it's going to be fun. It'll be a good time. Maybe they'll have some big news tomorrow when they're on the show, but you'll have to wait and see and find out. And I will announce who the special guest is sometime tomorrow. I've been doing updates on my fan board here, and that's been a lot of fun. And of course, in the NFL, not a whole lot of news there, as we, it's the dead zone. It's the dead zone for the NFL because there's not really a whole lot going on here. Let's check in on NFL.com to see if there's anything. Okay, so they're doing training camp previews now on NFL.com. Let's see here. Supplemental draft happen. Browns try out Canadian Football League defensive back Jordan Holland. That's good. And only a matter of time before they start trying out Indoor Football League players. And let's see what else we've got here. That's really about it, man. Brandon Browner facing attempted murder charge? Say what? Say what? That is crazy. Let's go to the news. Let's see what else we've got here the last 2 minutes here of headlines. Stop biting me, Fozzie. Contribute. Say something. Contribute to the podcast. Don't bite me. Say something. Say hi. As he swats at the microphone. Okay, so around the NFL news is the Browns thing. Jay Cutler's reality show is premiering soon, or premiering, I don't know. Cromartie's got one, right? Keeping Up with the Cromarties, or like Fuller House. I don't know. Eli apparently wants to prove that the Giants are right for not drafting a quarterback. Okay. Yeah, you go with that. HBO dropped the Browns Hard Knocks trailer. Hard Knocks, I really wish that wasn't a thing, especially since they came out with All or Nothing. So, as I've always described it, HBO's Hard Knocks, because all it covers is training camp and preseason, it's like the trailer for a movie, and you never get to see the movie. Well, I mean, you do, but in a less cinematic fashion, right? Like, obviously, if this was last year and they did Hard Knocks on the Browns, it would be the movie was kind of a bust, a flop, because they went 0-16. But for All or Nothing, man, that thing will grab hold of you and not let go. They bring you in, and it's just all gas, no brake. It's almost like you want those teams to win. You know what the outcome is, but it's like you're cheering for them. That's how I felt about the Cardinals one. The Rams one was pretty good. I haven't watched the Cowboys one because I'm just not a Cowboys fan, and I don't care to see Zeke on my television any more than I already have to. So that will do it for the headlines. Once again, more headlines for the show than anywhere else today, so that's a bit of different news. But we're going to bring on my first guest of the evening, Matthew Vasquez of Whiplash. So don't go anywhere. We got plenty more of the Fan Show coming up right after this. You're listening to The Fan Show, your home for all things football and nonsense. My special guest tonight, Farouk. Farouk, welcome.
He's no expert, but here's the thing. Football and nonsense is what he brings. Sports talk with a twist. It's the F.A.N. Show.
Do you know him as Kevin from the League? It is none other than very funny Steve Rannazzisi.
99% of the population doesn't know who I am, but the 1% do. They yell and scream inappropriate things at me in public.
Kyle Ray. Kyle, welcome.
And I was like, wow, I think we just saw the whole Super Bowl, Phyllis. It's like that scene in The Simpsons, like, why rent the movie? I just saw the best part.
Funny man Brad Williams.
Yeah, I'm here. No, I flew in just for your podcast. I've heard about this podcast. I've heard it's fantastic.
It's Mac and Farva, but they are my special guests tonight. Steve Lemmy, Kevin Heffernan.
I was in Mexico for 10 weeks in a Speedo. Like, that was me going to work. I was putting on a Speedo.
Farva is the most fun to play, and it was a blast to do that again, to do Farva again.
So then the makeup artist had to put Vaseline on your body, right?
Yeah.
And then put the powdered sugar on top of that. Is your name really Richard Siemens?
Listen live every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday night on Spreaker.com or subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is robot fighting time, and I'm not even going to attempt to try the Farouk version of that because there is only one man that could do it, and that is Farouk. But today, double dose of Battlebots, starting with the young gun, Matthew Vasquez of Team Whiplash, which is pretty much a family affair. Welcome to the program, Matthew. How you doing?
Oh, hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, yeah, I love getting to know you guys because, you know, in sports, when I cover... whatever league, whatever sport, it seems like there's a lot of guys that have very similar, what I call origin stories. And, of course, I'm a comic book nerd like that. But, with football guys, it was, I started playing before I could even walk, or, I got into it in high school and I was better at it than basketball and kind of went down that road. But they've always been, like, involved in sports to some degree, right? Very rarely do I hear somebody say, oh, yeah, I was working on cars in my spare time, and then we were playing catch out in the shop, and I said, hey, let's play football. I should pursue a career in that. So Battlebots, though, you guys come from all over the place. What's your story like? How did you get involved in this, and how did it become a family project for you guys?
So pretty much, I think I'd say 2001, I think it was when Battlebots Season 3 was on TV. My dad started. And he did, I think, 3 seasons of the original BattleBots after seeing, I think, a pay-per-view episode in, 1999 or something. So I think once he started, he was pretty much hooked, and he was pretty much totally into it, thinking about it all the time, building all the time. He had 2 main robots. He had one which was a lightweight named Matt Spammer, which was named after me. Then he had one that was a middleweight named Deadbot, named after my mom. So that was kind of how he got our mom sort of involved in this, and how she sort of, let him spend all the money and stuff to do it. But I think when we really got hooked is when, pretty much right when we started, I was about, 3 years old or something, and that was sort of the perfect age to sort of see what was going on and I think I was immediately hooked too, even at that young of an age.
Wow.
But, so we did it for a long time, probably till about 2007 or 2008. My dad took a little break from it, but I was still completely hooked, still, looking at YouTube videos, thinking about it all the time. And then eventually, we got back into it because I think my dad was almost ready to, kind of retire because a lot of people were at that time. But I sort of brought him back into it, and my brother was interested too. So that's kind of when it really got started, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, as I understand it, there's a bit of a sort of a friendly rivalry going on within Battlebots because Bronco was a big sort of, not, I guess, inadvertent mentor, or I guess you can tell me sort of the story there, but there is a sort of apprentice and Padawan kind of thing going on there with you guys and Bronco, or just specifically you and Team Bronco.
Oh, yeah, I think so, totally. They even season 2 in one of the intro clips, they showed me sitting on our couch watching TV, and I was watching the Inertial Labs guys with Bronco, flipping Stinger through the air. So, but, yeah, totally. I think me, I would say with, Donald, those guys, and maybe, Christian Kralberg, those are the people I watched on TV when I was, a little kid. And those were, the people I looked up to. So those were kind of my athletes I watched on TV when I was a little kid. So it's kind of crazy to, be with them now at Battlebots.
Yeah, no, that would be, you're coming full circle now.
Yeah, totally.
When you got into BattleBots and sort of established yourself, is it anything that got discussed as far as like, because we've seen with Team Overhaul, Jameson Go wanted to kind of go in a different direction, so he left. He started his own team, and we've seen that friendly rivalry play out this season on Season 3. But has there been any talk, like, did they approach you at all to be like, hey, like, why don't you come and join Team Bronco, and we can really, just dominate this? Or is it kind of more of, you have to be separate now at this point?
That's a good question, actually. Like, we haven't really thought of, obviously, we're friends with all the other teams and stuff, and then we talk about our robots and all that, but nothing like that. We never really thought about one of us, going on a completely different team. We've almost talked about, like, our team kind of stuff, because me and my brother have built robots of our own, and we've fought each other and stuff, so we've, thrown around the idea of us both doing our own robot BattleBots, or something like that. That would be fun, but who knows if that'll happen.
Everybody loves a good sibling rivalry, and I think we need more of that. What would you say has been your role in BattleBots? Ray Billings, the villain, Jameson Go, kind of getting forced into that with how he's been portrayed on TV. You've got Will Bales, who's kind of the heartthrob, hotshot kind of guy, and then you've got, of course, Witch Doctor with the costume and the gimmicks, and then you have Duck, who's the underdog. There's a lot of different characters in this. What would you say you've been portrayed as, and what kind of character would you like to be in something like this?
That's a good question. One way to look at it is actually Greg Munson, the creator of BattleBots, at one point sort of said we were the dark horse, kind of like no one really knew what to expect from us that much in the beginning, but we sort of, so far we've been doing well on the show. So, especially after doing so bad on Season 2 with our other robot Splatter, I don't think anyone necessarily, especially fans, didn't expect too much from us. I think we're surprising people a lot in that sense. That so far we've had 2 good, knockouts. But, I don't really know what I'd want to be portrayed as exactly. Maybe just like the, new person to look out for. That's what I think a lot of teams want that didn't do well in the past or new teams.
Well, it seems like you and the guys at Endgame can kind of fight for that young gunslinger spotlight.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's been so much fun to watch, and you've done very well this season, which has been awesome. And watching, I see the designs, and I love the different designs of the bots out there. But a lot of times you can see someone's, I guess, sort of influence if they've been a fan of the sport for a while, like back in the Comedy Central days. But you talk about being a fan of Bronco. Whiplash doesn't really have nearly anything Bronco-esque to it. Are you responsible for design and design ideas, or do you just drive it and let the rest of the family kind of figure out what's going to work out there?
So for Whiplash, well, I guess I'm kind of the main designer for the robot. Like, I do all the CAD work and stuff like that for the robot. But originally, we thought of the design before Season 1 of BattleBots when we were applying. We were an alternate for Season 1 with a robot called Splatter. But so this is pretty much the same design as that robot. We knew, to get into BattleBots, it's all about the application process. So they're looking for robots that are new and interesting and different. And after, a little while of thinking, because we had to get our application pretty quick for Season 1, we just sort of thought, a lifter with a vertical disc on the front would be interesting. No one's really done it. We didn't really know how competitive it could be. But we just decided to build it anyway because we had, not much time to do it. But, that was, me and my brother both kind of had the idea at the same time for the, spinner on the lifter.
Yeah.
And then we just figured, let's go for it.
It's been a very effective design. I think one that, I say kind of. It's definitely a copycat sport, which you'll see in any sport. The NFL is a copycat league. Whatever wins now. Will win for a while until somebody figures out another way to win, and then people will copy that.
Yeah.
What's a bot design? This is a question I have for everybody because I always get very interesting and unique responses. What's a bot design that you're rather envious of? Like, you look at it and you said, man, why didn't I think of that?
Ooh, that's a good question. Oh, man. Let me see. Minotaur would definitely be one. There's a lot of drum spinners, but that robot is just kind of like you point the weapon forward and you just drive at your opponent and you're going to win. And sort of the same thing with, Tombstone or, there's a few robots like that are really don't have that big of a weakness that anyone's exploited, where it's not really too much the driver needs to be amazing. You just need to, the robot needs to be reliable, and you just need to pretty much drive forward at your opponent. I think that's everyone's goal.
Yeah, and you like to see good driving skills in there because then it's about so much more than just the weapon. I talk about how
exactly.
I think a bot like Gamma 9 really gets overlooked because the
totally.
driving has been phenomenal. But you have what you would call like the perfect bot designs like Ray Billings with Tombstone and, as you mentioned, Minotaur, and it seems like they're almost unbeatable. They are beatable though, but you feel so bad because I see the social media and I look through the comments because I participate, I post stuff in the Battlebots group, but I feel so bad for a Zoe of Chump, who I've had on the show before, and she's very much is a fan of her own design, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it just seems like the bot designs, they're moving away from sort of gimmicky and more to like effective and what's good for TV and entertainment. And hers, there's not really a gimmick to it. It's just a unique design that she feels, if driven properly, can be effective. But it's been such a tough going. I don't know if it's been a result of tough matchups or what. But what are your thoughts on a bot like Chomp?
I think a bot like Chomp, honestly, I don't think Chomp, she designed it to be, the apex design that's going to be everyone. Yeah. I think she wanted to take a design that hasn't been, like, hammer bots, most of the time aren't super successful. And I think she wanted to take that design and do it, do her own version of it and try to make it, the best one there is. And, try to win with the hammer bot, which I think, that's a great thing to do. If you could take, a design that no one else is really touching and make it win, then you're going to have people copying you. And you're going to, maybe that'll be the new apex design. But, with how Chomp's been doing so far, I think it's just people have sort of figured out the way to beat Chomp this far into the competition. And I think just next time she'll have to, do something a little bit different. I'm not sure what, but we'll see.
Well, it kind of reminds me of, when you played the game Twisted Metal and you had the different cars that had a great special weapon, but they lacked in like the armor. So if you got hit, you were probably done for. Or they had a lot of armor, but they weren't very fast and their weapon was okay. So it was like you took the good with the bad and so on and so forth. But I think a lot of people are moving more towards quicker bots because if your weapon fails, you need to be able to get out of the way of your opponent's weapon, and you need to be able to use the box to your advantage. We've seen so many fights where the weapons have failed, and it came all down to driving and how well they used the box. I mean, Brutus versus Warhawk was a fantastic match, and the way that Brutus was able to flip himself back over without having a self-righting system. So I don't think it's anything against like Zoe's design. I think it's just the trend of where Battlebots and what works right now is going. So we'll see what happens with that. Is there a dream matchup that you have for this season?
Ooh. Dream matchup. That's a good question. I mean, the robots we want to fight with Whiplash are not like the Ice Waves or the Sonomayachis or robots like that. I mean, if you're going to fight a robot like that, you want to be like a Brutus or something like that, or a Bombshell that has, a dedicated big wedge on the front and, a one main big vertical spinner or something like that. We want to fight the robots that are like, a Flipper or like a Bronco or a Stinger or a, even like a Hypershock or Witch Doctor, something that we could have a good driving fight with, or like maybe like a Blacksmith or something like that. Because we want a fight that's going to have a lot of driving, a lot of strategy, and mostly just a fun, entertaining fight. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, last question for you then. What do you think about BattleBots on Discovery? Have you liked the relationship so far?
Oh, yeah. I think it's the perfect place for BattleBots. I think it really... I don't think there's a more perfect home for it at this point.
Yeah, I mean, maybe MTV, since they don't do music anymore, it might fit perfectly over there. All right, well, hey, Matthew, thank you so much. I'm going to bring on Hal Rucker of Duck here in a few minutes, but I did have a chance to interview your mother while I was down there on location, because she's, I think, the BattleBots official mom, and she was a very sweet lady. So thank you for being on the show, and best of luck to you guys this season, and I look forward to talking with you again soon.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
Hey, you're welcome anytime.
Yeah, see you.
All right, that was Matthew Vasquez of Whiplash. And yes, his mom is a sweetheart. It was very fun to interview her live and on location. Well, live and on location, I say that, but I mean just on location while I was there. She's the my pick for official mom of Battlebots. It was a lot of fun to talk to her. And it was after one of their fights, so it was a lot of emotions running. So great interview. Can't wait to share those with you guys, which I believe we're getting closer to because this last episode started out with a sequence that I was actually there for. So I don't know how that works as far as opening sequence stuff, but I do remember the fights that I was there to watch and what was going on while I was there. So I'm still waiting patiently for my episodes, I guess if you want to call them that, waiting to see if I get spotted on camera, or if any of you spot me on camera, share it. I'd love to see myself. But I also have some great content to share with you guys, interviews that I did while I was down there. So more exciting stuff on the way, and that is going to bring us to the we're just over the midway point of the show, so I guess I might as well bring on my next guest, the man behind Duck, Hal Rucker. So don't go anywhere. We've got more Fan Show coming up right after this. You're listening to The Fan Show, your home for all things football and nonsense. My special guest tonight, Farouk. Farouk, welcome.
He's no expert, but here's the thing. Football and nonsense is what he brings. Sports talk with a twist. It's the F.A.N. Show.
Do you know him as Kevin from the League? It is none other than very funny Steve Ranazisi.
99% of the population doesn't know who I am, but the 1% do. They yell and scream inappropriate things at me in public.
Kyle Ray. Kyle, welcome.
And I was like, wow, I think we just saw the whole Super Bowl, Phyllis. It's like that scene in The Simpsons. Like, why rent the movie? I just saw the best part.
Funny man Brad Williams.
Yeah, I'm here. No, I flew in just for your podcast. I've heard about this podcast. I've heard it's fantastic.
It's Mac and Farva, but they are my special guests tonight. Steve Lemmy, Kevin Heffernan.
I was in Mexico for 10 weeks in a Speedo. Like, that was me going to work. I was putting on a Speedo.
Farva is the most fun to play, and it was a blast to do that again, to do Farva again.
So then the makeup artist had to put Vaseline on your body, right?
Yeah.
And then put the powdered sugar on top of that. Is your name really Richard Siemens?
Listen live every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday night on Spreaker.com, or subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. I wish I had that part from the Mighty Ducks queued up right now that we could bring in my next guest properly. But nonetheless, he is the man behind one word, and that is Duck of Battlebots, Hal Rucker. How you doing, Hal?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, man, it's I want to say privilege and an honor. You were quite the fan favorite. Like, I didn't quite understand what all the buzz was about while I was down there, but man, you were a very popular bot and driver, and it's been so fun to watch this all play out this season on the Discovery Channel. Was that what you was that surprising that you ended up being kind of a fan favorite during this season?
It's not something I planned on. I think a few things were working in our favor. One was our robot has kind of a sad face on it, so I think people like rooting for sad faces.
As opposed to Hughes with his angry face.
Yes. Well, he's popular too, actually. I guess a face is what you need. And then my co-driver is my daughter, who's 13, and I think people like supporting the kids involved in the sport.
Yeah, I completely agree.
And then I think maybe it was because we went in with such low expectations. You know, people were kind of surprised that the robot did what it was supposed to do.
Which, you know, that's something that I love talking about here on the show during these segments is the inspiration behind the bot design. Yours, you know, it's Battlebots, it's combat robot fighting time, you know, and yours is very simplistic. And it is effective and it works, but you don't have any buzzsaws coming off the top. You don't have, you know, a vertical or horizontal spinner. You don't have a hammer that swings up and down or left and right. It's a wedge, but it's not a flipper like with Bronco. I mean, what inspired you to design something so simple but yet so effective out there?
Well, I think the answer might be disappointing. Like a lot of teams this year, we really had very little time to build our robot.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if people remember, but in season 2, we brought a very complex ring spinner called the Ringmaster.
Ah, yes.
And we were excited. That it was a really complicated machine, and our plans, we thought of that as sort of a prototype for what we really wanted to build. And we were hoping to bring Ringmaster 2 for season 3. And we have it all catted up and ready to go. But by the time everything worked out, we only had 3 weeks to design, build, and test a robot.
Oh.
So I decided there just wasn't time to do Ringmaster 2.0 correctly. So I thought of the simplest design I could possibly get done in 3 weeks. And that was a design that was based on a robot I had built for Robo Games.
Okay, was that another animal name? Because, you don't think of what you see when Duck is out there as Duck. Like, I'm thinking like armadillo almost, right? Because of the way that it's so heavily armored and shoves you around. Like, it's armadillo. It's not a duck, but Duck is a sensation out there. So I guess, where did the duck come from?
Well, Duck is based on a robot named Whoops, which the only thing they have in common in their name is they both have exclamation marks. So I think we own the exclamation mark at this point.
Oh, wow.
It was probably 4 a.m. in the morning, and I was designing the fork on the front of the lifter plate, and it just looked a little bit like a duck bill. So a deadline is a good, forces decision making. And at 4 a.m, I said, this looks like a duck. Let's call it Duck. And let's move on to the next thing. That's the level of thought that went into the name of the robot. And at the last minute when I was painting it, I thought, well, maybe if I put some eyes on it, it'll look more like a duck. So, yeah, a lot of the design and implementation of Duck was determined by the short deadline that we had to get it done.
Well, hey, inspiration can hit you at any moment and come from a variety of different places, or even a lack thereof. So whatever the origin story is, it's still interesting to hear, because you're right. Some of them are very complex. There's a lot of history there, and some are just like, we were running out of time and needed to throw this thing together. And now everyone's on a level playing field out there in the battle box. And you've been very successful, like I said, a fan favorite. And it's been so much fun to watch everything play out on season 3. What has been sort of the reception? Because obviously the fans like you, but of course it's the respect and admiration and acknowledgement of your fellow bot builders that is sometimes more important to you guys. Has the reception been well received for you amongst the robot building and fighting community with Duck?
Yeah, the community is pretty kind. It would be pretty rare for someone to walk up to a robot and say, what a piece of junk is that? Having said that, I think it's hard to tell from watching on TV, but the thing that I think the other builders admire about Duck is the way it's fabricated. It's machined out of a solid billet of aluminum, and on a giant mill. And when you take off the lid and look inside, it's pretty well organized and compact. So I think with the lid off, people tend to be impressed with it and have nice things to say. With the lid on, people tend to say, what's your weapon?
It's all about the weapon.
Is that legal? Why did they accept a robot without a weapon? So there's a lot of discussions about that as well.
So it's interesting that you said that, because I was just talking with Matthew Vasquez from Whiplash, and I mentioned that, Zoe receives a lot of criticism, a lot of really negative feedback. And I think it's a lot to do with just that she's been unsuccessful this year, because prior to that, she was one of the first bot builders I ever had on the show back when there was season 2, and we didn't even know if there was going to be a season 3.
Right.
The ABC days, and she was very successful. She was very popular, another fan favorite, and now it seems like everybody's an armchair bot builder out there with an opinion. But
Right.
I said that to Matthew. I said, I do love seeing a good, effective weapon. I really do. That's why I'm such a big fan of Blacksmith, because it's a design that you don't think of overnight, but that hammer, when it swings and it's effective, it's a thing of beauty. It's so much fun, and it's not your stereotypical horizontal vertical spinner or drum or saw that you see so many. But Gamma 9, I feel, gets overlooked because it's a pincher bot, but the driving skill has been so great because it's a tank, and it pushes the opponent around, uses the Battlebots to its advantage, which is something that I'm not surprised, or I'm not sure why they don't encourage that more, because there's plenty of weapons out there to be used. But you're right there in that category too, where you drive very well, you use your surroundings to your advantage, and then it takes a lot to put you down. So I feel like you guys, with more of the tank armadillo, or whatever you want to call it, mentality, you guys can really do some damage out there.
Yeah, I think I usually build complex robots, so Duck is a change for me, and I found throughout the tournament that one of my biggest challenges was the active weapons rule, and how I was going to impress the judges, knowing that I had to beat my opponent with my weapon, and my weapon is just a duck beak. So in terms of strategy and driving style, and my intention going into a match was driven a lot, that's no pun intended, was driven by my awareness of that particular rule and what could I do about it.
Fair enough.
And I don't know if this is off topic, but I got to get something off my chest.
Okay.
So many people criticize Duck as being just a wedge, which drives me crazy, because there are so many robots that do have wedges. Ice Wave has a wedge, Endgame has a wedge, Bombshell has a wedge, but Duck doesn't have a wedge. A wedge is an inclined plane. We have the opposite of a wedge. We have a vertical wall. So, bot world out there, stop calling you a wedge. I'm not a wedge.
You're Duck, and you are a force to be reckoned with. Oh, what got you into bot fighting? Like, what's your day job, and are they easily correlated with one another, or did this kind of come out of nowhere, a passion project or a hobby that you pursued, and now here we are seeing you on Discovery Channel every Friday night?
Yeah, my profession is I'm an inventor, so I invent stuff and patent it and try and sell it. So I love to build things, design things in CAD, make prototypes. So it's definitely a connection with making robots for Battlebots. I think my origin, the reason I got involved in the first place, is similar to many of the other builders, in that I saw it on TV. When it was on Comedy Central, and I actually lived near where it was being filmed. It was on Comedy Central, so I'd go and be in the audience.
Yeah.
And pretty quickly decided I just had to participate. So I've been doing it a long time. The first heavyweight I built was for the season of Battlebots on Comedy Central that got canceled. So it got canceled right before I finished my first robot.
Oh, wow.
Which was a bummer, but I stuck with it and still doing it today.
Oh, man, that's rough, but thank you so much for sticking with it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have Duck, and that's just a lot of fun to see out there. So, Yeah,
and I was listening a little bit to Matthew's comments, and I was on the other side of the relationship. So I think I started to get back into it because my daughter was old enough to be interested.
Oh,
So
okay.
we built some simple robots together, and she turned out to be a really good driver. So that got me more and more interested, and makes it more fun now because my whole family's involved.
So we got another family affair then. That's a nice doubleheader tonight, too. Full-on family projects and Whiplash and Duck. Was that, I think when you inspire family, specifically your kids, and I say I think because I don't have any to inspire at the moment, but the way that it looks from the outside looking in is that you have to really be good at what you do to inspire that next generation of your own, because so many times we see kids kind of go almost the opposite way of their parents because they want to try something new, something different. But you have to, it's the ones that are really good at what they do that make the child want to go, man, I want to be just like you because this is awesome. Like, is that the feeling that you get when you see how this is played out and it now being like a family affair and your daughter being a bot builder herself?
I think in general, I'd agree with you, but it's just a generalization. For example, my daughter loves to go to the events and she loves to drive and she likes to beat people who are older than her. But but she hasn't really shown any interest in engineering yet. She's still pretty young, so maybe she will, but maybe she won't. Whereas I think Matthew and Jeff's other son, Jason, is it Jason? I think it's Jason. Yeah, sorry. They have an interest in engineering. They've built their own robots, with their own hands, whereas Hannah hasn't gotten to that stage. So I think it's different for every kid and every family. If nothing else, I mean, if Hannah ends up not going in engineering, she decides she wants to be a English teacher, she still knows how to use power tools, right? She's not afraid of using a mill.
That's awesome.
So even if she never uses one, she's been exposed to it, which I think is great.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you on that. Any inspiration is inspiration regardless, but it is always great to see a sort of, keeping it in the family, keeping the tradition alive, I guess. But Battlebots has been such a great community, but it's interesting. And Matthew and you have both said that, the Battlebots community is such a tight-knit group and you guys are all very friendly and stuff, and TV portrays you however they will. But, you get online and the comments, maybe not so kind, and it's interesting to see that come from a fan perspective of something where that is generally the attitude. So I don't know if TV has ruined people's perception and makes them all with their own opinion, but I do think every one of you guys down there has been fantastic. It was a real treat to meet and interact with some of you guys. But is this a one and done for Duck, because of the short time frame, or have you inspired a movement, and if we don't get Duck in season 4, there's going to be city riots?
I don't know. That's a really good question. I mean, I really want to bring something that's more complex and has a kinetic weapon, but it was really fun to drive Duck, and I can't talk about outcomes, but it was fun. We've had some dinner conversations if Battlebots would allow it, if we could bring Duck and another robot, and Hannah could drive one and I could drive the other.
Hey,
I think that would be the optimal solution, but that might be a little bit greedy. I don't know if Battlebots would be into that.
I think Battlebots is into whatever makes this feel more like a sport, which I think, it doesn't need much more because it feels like a sport to me, and I cover a lot of sports, obviously. But I love Battlebots. I love what it is, and I think it's just such a unique spin and take on one-on-one combat, or even, in a battle royal kind of situation. But to see guys that are normally the miracle workers behind the scenes actually get some spotlight and go out there and compete like competitors, like athletes, is so interesting to see, especially watching all of you try to be interviewed on camera or on podcast, because you can tell that for some of you, very much fish out of water experience, but always a treat. And so, Hal, I want to thank you. Rest the Battlebots. Of course, we're not done yet, but we are getting ever closer to the tournament. But hey, Duck, fan favorite and so much fun and entertaining to see out there. I do want to thank you for your time this evening on my weekly segment for BattleBots.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And anyone who's listening, be sure to watch and support it so that we get a season 4.
Yeah, Discovery Channel is doing some great things. So BattleBots Season 4, I think the future looks very bright. But that's me as a biased fan and from one of the builders in Hal Rucker here. But hey, Hal, you have a great rest of your night, and thank you so much again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Take care.
Bye.
All right, that was the man behind Duck, Hal Rucker, and that is going to do it for our Wednesday edition of The Fan Show. Don't forget, because of the big news, I feel like I need to mention to you how you can enjoy The Fan Show. So give it a couple weeks before you find me on Spotify. I will post the links, don't you worry. But until then, you can still enjoy on iTunes, SoundCloud, and iHeartRadio, and of course, Spreaker.com, which is where I broadcast to you live from within Fan Cave Studio 2.0, the command center. It's a lovely place in here if you ever have the pleasure of being here for a live interview. I am confident that you will be very impressed with the way that we have things set up here. But you can also follow me and enjoy me on social media. Facebook, 900 likes and counting, so go and give us a like if you haven't yet. Let's get to 1,000. Give me some ideas for what you want me to do once we hit the big 1-0-0. Big 1K. Did I say too many zeros? 1 0 0. Yeah, okay. Sorry, it's late on a Wednesday. I'm midway through my week, and I'm ready just to be done and relax because I went from championship weekend, 4 days on the road, 3.5, and then just diving right into a full work week and a full week of episodes. But tomorrow night's going to be a lot of fun. You won't want to miss it. Special surprise guest for you indoor football fans out there. And, of course, if you only listen to the Wednesday episodes for the BattleBot segments, again, thank you. Continue to spread the word because I'm confident that there's an episode of The Fan Show out there for everyone. And even more so, there's an episode at least once a week for everyone out there that is a fan of The Fan Show. So whatever your poison, I try to do it here, including music, pop culture, and whatever else. Ant-Man and the Wasp is out. I saw The Incredibles over the weekend. That was a lot of fun. Haven't seen Ant-Man and Wasp, but I hear great things, so very excited about that. And Facebook is facebook.com/fanshowofficial. Then the Instagram and the Snapchat is simply The Fan Show, and Twitter is @FanShowOfficial. So like, love, listen, and share. And remember, until next time, ladies and gentlemen, best of luck to you and yours. Go Niners, and it's all fun and games until you butt fumble. Good night, folks.
Do you remember the time that Mark Sanchez ran into his player's spot? That was funny sports.
Thank you for having me on the show, man. I love The Fan Show.